Welcome to the Timeless Marketing Podcast with Brian Kurtz, your connection to insights from some of the top direct response marketing minds on the planet.
Hey, it's Brian Kurtz here, host of the Timeless Marketing Podcast. Today's episode is a clip from one of the 2-hour calls inside Titan's Accelerator, my private mentorship program for direct response marketers. Before we get to that, I have one question for you. Do you have a marketing insurance policy? If you don't, you need one. And that's why I created Titan's Accelerator, which is one of the most giving communities and serves as the de facto board of advisors and marketing insurance policy for over 250 of the best and brightest direct response marketers, copywriters, media buyers, marketing agencies, senior executives, anyone in direct response marketing who is committed to growing and scaling their business. The bottom line, you don't have to grow your business alone. And you don't need to spend tens of thousands of dollars either. Titan's Accelerator is 1/10 of the price of most groups of its kind. I know because I hosted a group that was over $20,000 a year. If you want to see how Titan's Accelerator can help you grow and scale your specific business, go to briankurtz.net/help. That's BrianKurtz.net/help. And with a private membership, you'll receive access to the full presentation from today's episode, along with the Q&A and discussion that followed. As an added bonus, you'll receive access to a vault filled with many more private calls just like this one. Again, if you want to see if Titan's Accelerator is a fit for you with no obligation, go to briankurtz.net/help. That's BrianKurtz.net/help. And feel free to email me directly. I respond to every email with questions about this episode or just to say hi at brian@briankurtz.net. Now on to today's episode.
Hey, Kev, how you doing?
Good, buddy. How's it going?
Pretty good. Pretty good. Our star speaker. Look at him. What a stud.
I adjust my light with the flip of a blind. That's when you know you've gone pro, my friend.
You know, I knew you were a pro already, but again, every time you say, do I just have to show up and then say something? I said, no, all you have to do is show up. I mean, we can all watch you breathe for an hour and a half.
Yeah. It would be very entertaining.
So Kev, you know, that was Dean, and you know, you had these series of interviews with you had some great people. You had Todd Brown. You had a bunch of people. So tell me about give an overview of what else you heard from those people you interviewed, and also whatever you're thinking about, because you're a great thinker and you're thinking ahead as well. So don't underestimate that either. But what are you seeing? Like what, and not just with COVID, but how are you looking ahead to post-COVID? Because we're thinking now and we're thinking in the future. Yeah. So what do you have for us?
That's been the interesting thing, right? Is that how fast time has moved in some ways. Again, another great dichotomy. In some ways, the running joke has been, what day is it? We just, every day feels the same. In other hands, when it comes to marketing and advertising, I think things have evolved so quickly. Take, for instance, if you're watching any broadcast television and seeing commercials, to me, because it's a slower pace to get something produced in on the air. But we're seeing this like lag of like 1 or 2 weeks with broadcast advertising on television where, at first it was like just weird. 1-2 weeks into the lockdown, you'd see a commercial with people gathered or hugging, and you're like, what the hell is that? They're crazy. It just felt immediately out of touch. Then they caught up, and every single commercial was a slow piano in a minor key, and lots of slow close-ups of people in masks, and everybody in scrubs is now our hero. The guy stocking the shelves is the most bravest person in our community. And that was all like really touching for a while. And then we got used to that, and we all really got sick of that vibe, right? And now we're still seeing some commercials that started running then, and it's just like, it's incredible how quickly that feels out of touch. So it's a great advantage for us. And you're right, Brian, we have to think now, but also think ahead. So I think for me in my business, the thing we've seen most directly is, and I think done pretty well, is how do we have this conversation in a way that's appropriate, but not make sure that it doesn't ever start to sound gratuitous or condescending or last week, right? Like that's just a big thing we're all facing right now. Even like terms like uncertain times just became hack and cliched really fast, things like that. So just really paying attention to languaging. And again, like being sensitive to the fact that our experience is different. Look, we've all been dealing virtually. We have people from all over the country and I'm sure various places in the world on this call right now. This is how we're used to dealing with each other. And our experience with COVID is different right now on some levels than any, vastly different. And so when you speak about it in real time, you also have to be conscientious that not everybody's having your experience. For instance, here in my county, I looked it up this morning, there have only been like 600 hospitalizations in my entire county. That's pretty amazing. There's only been, a few hundred, 100 or so deaths, which is a blessing. Amazing. I don't know why it is, who knows, we might not know that science for years. But so here things are starting to open up and people are really eager to kind of get back to life. You're starting to see people at restaurants and everybody's just kind of gone, we did what we could. We're rolling the dice. Let's hope not for a second wave and let's go. Right. That's kind of the vibe here. But I know people in New York or Connecticut and other people just in my own mastermind where it's like, we're not even thinking about leaving the house yet. We're locked down. And so just being conscious of that and thinking about your languaging in a whole new way is really important. Yeah, but the great thing about those calls, Brian, and I'm sure you've had several like this too. It's such a privilege to talk to true leaders, true forward thinkers, because their principles are solid no matter what the environment is, right? And I loved Todd Brown. The big standout that Todd Brown shared was, he's like, look, yes, these are uncertain times. Again, this is like week 1 of lockdown. He said, of course, this is freaky and weird right now. We don't know what's going to happen. But really, how is that different than any other time in marketing? Right. We never know what's going to happen. That's why we test, and that's why we guess, and that's why we put a lot of stuff out and we read the data. That's what we do. It's what we're built for. We're in this industry because we embrace that. We don't always love it, but we live in uncertainty. And so the thing we have to do to get through this is the same thing we should always be doing, which is making sure we are in tune with what our prospects want from us, what they desire right now, and finding new ways to give it to them, finding exciting, innovative ways to deliver it to them. And I was like, man. And, Todd's a preacher and he gets all worked up and he gets fired up. And I just thought it's so simple and brilliant. It's such a reminder. And it shows like why a guy like Todd, if there's such a thing as being crisis proof, it's those sort of principles, those sort of elements that it's like, man, there's a crisis waiting around the corner at all times in life and business and entrepreneurship. It's just part of the deal. And you can't walk around scared all the time, but you've got to walk around very conscious all the time and have.
Yeah, let me ask you a question, Kev, specifically to your avatar. And there's a lot of people who might be in your group in this on this call, or at least a lot of them know of you because you were asked to be a speaker. So you had enough popularity to get in here.
Made the cut. Thank you.
Yeah, you made the cut. So the thing is, two things combined. So first of all, we talked a lot about, COVID and, not being tone deaf, but not being obsessed and terms have to change over time. But more importantly, your people are copywriters, and the people you coach are copywriters. Copywriters, by their nature, are already pre-COVID. They're already working on their own. They're already in that space. So how do you speak to your audience? And this might be helpful to other people who don't have copywriters. But I thought of it when Bill said, how do I get real estate owners to realize how to get $1 million business? And, you and I have done that. How do copywriters get to $1 million, right?
Right.
So I think that, can you speak to how, because I don't think a lot would be changed as far as how copywriters work. It might be that they have less business, but then again, if they're leaders in the copywriting community, which I know most of your people are, wouldn't wouldn't you teach them to convince their clients that this is the best time to promote?
Yeah.
And I can write for you in this environment, that type of thing?
Yeah.
So talk about that.
Sure. Yeah. That was one thing we did. It was like, look, naturally, some people lost gigs. And it was, again, one of those things where it's like, if you were newer at it and you were still, for instance, being more of a generalist, so you weren't specializing, you were more susceptible to having gigs cancel and things like that. If you didn't have enough reputation to have a strong contract to protect you from things like that, right? So when people were scrambling for work, we was like, look, go to your client list, email every single one of them individually. Don't send out a broad email. Go to every single former client individually and say, look, here's the pattern we're seeing. Rule number one is you cannot say nothing, right? You're not allowed to not say anything. And yes, there's this flood of emails in everybody's inbox where we're like, I don't remember ever even being on this list or doing, and they're telling me a message from our CEO. But you've got to do that. I don't care if it's being done to me. If they care about you, they're waiting to hear from you. So silence is not an option. That's number one. Number two, there's a way to talk about this in a way that feels genuine, that is sincere, even if you don't know the punchline or there's no call to action. You can't even say what's next. There's a way to have this conversation. And I've been helping other clients do this. And I'm in a community where we've talked a lot about how to create these messages. Is this something I could help you with? Right. So just a simple thing like that, because, man, again, an unprecedented event, it's very hard to know. There is no script for this. There's no template. Right. So if you could step up and provide one, and it was a great way to provide a simple, immediate service. Even in some cases, I said, offer it for free. It's like, look, I know how this languaging works. Let me just be cool and help you out with this. That's the spirit of what we're all doing right now. And a cool way to get a dialogue going with, it's funny you mentioned that. Actually, things are great for us, but we do need some copy for this other thing, right? So that was one thing.
I think what I heard there was that also I heard step up and like basically you get your people in front of you. You're stepping up in leadership. You're having a conversation with them, not even knowing, as you said, not even knowing where you're going to go, because you got to talk it through. But because if you're smart and the person you're speaking to is smart, that's 1 + 1 = 3. And so something's going to happen from that conversation. It may lead to you offering something for free. In my case, that's usually what happens. And then I hit myself for doing it. But you gotta just figure out, because like you don't have to have a plan you gotta reach out. And that was really, I hope everybody wrote that down, that it's not, I do broad emails to Accelerator, to my mastermind, but during the day, I'm emailing with a lot of you guys one-on-one. I'm emailing with my list one-on-one when they send me a reply. I've got more time. I'm not encouraging all of you to email me tomorrow with a question. That's not what I'm saying. But I think that it's really important to just be connected and not even knowing, because you're going to say something somewhat intelligent. Maybe not. Maybe I'm saying nothing that's intelligent right now, but I'm filling up space, and that's a good thing. And so, but the thing is that you're going to get somewhere, and then where you get to becomes part of the new plan.
Yeah.
But you have to reach out. You can't stay isolated. You can't not do anything. You how do I say that?
Yeah.
You have to do something. You have to do something.
Yeah. And especially like saying nothing is not an option. Silence is not an option in this. And even if it feels like, oh my God, I don't want to be one more message in an inbox saying, I acknowledge this is happening and it's freaky, but we're here. We're almost together. Got to say it. Got to say something. And like you said, if you have a copywriter on your side, you're going to find a way to say it uniquely, in voice, in tone, considerately, and maybe even create excitement about something new that's coming. Share ideas. Here's some things we're working on. Things like that. So
yeah, like I've gravitated to copywriters my whole career because I'm not one. But I gravitate to them because they're the most creative. They're, they add something to every conversation with a marketer. That's the 1 + 1 = 3, or the entrepreneur. But even more so when you're in a conversation where, this goes back, and I know you teach this in Copy Chief, that, Dan Kennedy, goes to AWAI and he says, if you're here to figure out right for food, I'm not your guy.
Yeah.
You got to be you got not just a trusted advisor, but you have to be a consultant. And I hate the word consultant because it seems to intimate that you're unemployed. But no, in the context of this, it's copywriter plus consultative is the business now.
Yeah.
And that's what you have to be in the copywriting world, that you have to be. And the ones who are consultants, I guess I'm a consultant because I'm unemployed. But if I'm a consultant, then I want to give people copy platforms. I want to give them, and then look for a copywriter for them, because I'm not going to write it, but I could give them the concept, and then I want to find a copywriter. But I think talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I remember one of the greatest things Carlton ever told me privately was, you'll make the big bucks from making the hard calls. And that's what he was talking about. It's like, you got to understand the marketing, and there's going to be, like you say, Brian, the other thing I wanted to point out, back to the reaching out thing. I love what you always say. What is it? Every interaction is not a transaction opportunity. It's a relationship opportunity.
It's not a revenue event. It's a relationship event.
Thank you. Yeah, it's exactly that. The Carlton would say, you make the big buck. They pay the big bucks for you making the hard calls, because they don't know. It's like there's two ways to go with a headline. If there's two ways to go with a big idea or a hook, they're going to look at you and go, well, you're the copywriter, which is better. And you got to confidently go, we're going with B for sure. I love it. It's hot. And you don't know, but you can't go, I don't know, just test them and see what happens. I hope it works. Yeah. I mean,
you know what I always say? I predicted with 100% accuracy every single test in my career after I have the result.
It's an amazing record. Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. I have a spotless record.
Yeah. But man, you're exactly right. To me, look, the thing I got, RFL behind me, Real Free Life is that's my passion, Brian. Like, that program has really grown into the thing I love the most doing in my business.
Yes.
We talk about freelancing. Maybe I will show you something if you don't mind. We have this really cool thing now called the Freelancer's Journey. And it's really interesting, man, because speaking of, somebody mentioned Stu, a friend of ours. Man, when I first started Copy Chief, Brian, Stu was nice enough to get on a call with me and just let me, pick his brain. And
right.
The greatest.
Most people would pick his pocket, but you didn't.
Yeah, I wanted his brain. And so the big takeaway from that call was, he said, you've got to bring people into a membership and help them identify where they are on the timeline. And then you've got to help them, learn what they need there, and then keep them excited about reaching the finish line, but also reminding them that it's next step. And I was like, of course, that makes perfect sense. But then my dilemma was, how do I do that with copywriting? People have such a vast hodgepodge of different experience, abilities, fears. It's like, how can I tell somebody this is how to identify? Okay, if you're here, you don't need any of this. Surely they're going to need some things that got work. You know what I mean? I could never put together.
No, that's fascinating. That's fascinating.
A timeline. But when it comes to coaching freelancers, I started to see a timeline emerge. And last year, the thing we did that we didn't have before was we created a freelancing course for beginners, for brand new copywriters. It was like, hey, what we call phase 0 is where you're just in that point in life where you're like, something's got to give, something's got to change, but what? I can't live this way. I can't come into this building one more time. I cannot punch a clock. I'm going to kill myself. What do I do? And that's phase 0, because then you discover something. And that's when you fall in love with the skill and industry or something. Copywriting is a great example. Could be photography, could be design, could be whatever. And then
for all freelancers, not just copywriters.
Exactly. And that moment happens for every freelancer, right? You either decide the thing they're paying me at this company, I can do better on my own, but what does that look like? And then, this program we have called Escape Velocity is for phase 1 through 2, which is phase 1 is proving the model. Let me just prove the model that I'm good enough at this, that there's people out there who will pay me to do it. Right. And then after you prove the model, it's like, okay, now how to get steady and, keep getting paid so I can transition maybe, out of my full-time job and make this my business. And I was thinking about this earlier, Brian, because I'm actually writing the book, the Freelancer's Journey book. I'm really excited. It's going to be my first real book. Yeah. I've had my pamphlet, my lead magnet, 60-second sales hook for 3 years, which has been an incredible story in itself. But anyway, I was thinking about what's great about freelancing is it's a way to become a business owner without all the pressure of going all in on a business. You get to sort of like step into this idea of what are your strengths as a business owner, as a service provider, and what parts of it drive you crazy and do you put off? Because there's 5 or 6 jobs. The thing about becoming a freelancer, you got into it because you loved doing one thing that you were really good at, that it seemed like people needed. You found out they did need that. And then you look up and you're like, shit, there's like 5 other jobs that need to be done to make this thing work. And I wouldn't hire me to do any of those fucking jobs.
Right. That's you got to understand your unique ability. You have to, that's the big part of the journey of, what do you do well and stay in that lane and buy some people don't have the cash, but you got to buy everything else around the corner. I mean, I had the advantage of going freelance after I had 34 years. So I had some cash built up. I could hire Carla. I could hire Chris. I could hire Chris's guy and Chris's person in the Philippines, or the guy who hooks up the plumbing on our sales stuff. But if I had to do any of that, I'd be out of business. Yeah,
and can you imagine? Right, and so you plus you also knew that those departments needed to exist. That was
the advantage. I knew what I had to do. Yeah. I wasn't going to do it, and if I had to do it, I wouldn't have this business. I wouldn't do that business if I had to do it. I wouldn't have done it.
Yeah, and so that's what freelancers face. It's all love and glory in the beginning. You're like, oh my God, another person just hired me and I just got more. You get that alert on your phone. You've got cash. Oh my God, I'm winning, right? Yeah. And then you start to realize if I'm going to scale this thing, I need some new skills, or I need some new, and you can't afford to hire those things out. There's no, in a 4-hour work week when you're skimming by. So, that's what. So I'll just quickly show you, Brian.
Yeah, share that. That sounds really.
You know my history. It's pretty exciting just to have this. So if you can see this.
Oh yeah, I think I've seen this. This is great.
Yeah. So these are the phases, and I was only able to actually create this once we had Escape Velocity, because that covered. I wasn't going to create this until I'd really successfully taught it all. Right. I had phase 3, 4 through RFL. Phase 5 is where people join, like my mastermind. And now a thing I call the incubator, Brian, is where my mastermind has become more of a partnership almost, right? Where I'm helping them build their own business rather than just raising them up on my own platform. I want them to go beyond me and Copy Chief. That's what excites me now, right? So now, and this at phase 7 is where I am in my business. It's crazy to think, but actually pondering what is the legacy. I turned 50 last year, this year? Who can remember at 50?
You're a baby. You're a spring chicken.
I know. I could still do jump squats, but
yeah.
But still, like you do start thinking about what's Kev at 60. It's going to be very different than 50, certainly very different than 40, I don't want to be starting anything over again if I don't have to, right? So how can I take what I've got now, what I know now, and turn that into something I can, transition out of and maybe leave to my kids? And how long can it live even beyond me? It'd be fantastic. So, but that's 7. Obviously, that's another level of teaching altogether. But to have these phases, and I forget the original impetus that made me think of this, but we were talking about though, but what you need at given times to be successful. And I would imagine most people on this call and in this group are here in like phase 3, 4, 5, where we don't do important things like setting a standard. Sometimes it's like, as a freelancer, you've got to make sure now at phase 3 that the only clients that qualify to work with you are meeting your standard for how a project goes, right? You're excited about what they do. You believe in their integrity. You identify with their voice. You're excited to learn more about their audience. And then once you stabilize, you start gathering momentum. Now it's like you've done the work. You've been in the trenches. Now it's time to step out as a leader, sticking your face in every camera that'll have you, being on every podcast that'll have you, because you have something to say. You have something to share. And then phase 5 is fine tuning and starting to actually systematically scale beyond client work, which again is like where most people want. This is where it's like, okay, am I ready to be a business owner? Can I learn? It's kind of in a sense where you were, Brian. It's like you'd learned everything through all that great experience at Boardroom. And now it was just like deciding phase 6, really, how do you want to scale and leverage your existing knowledge without having to start over or let it be overwhelming and it instantly become a nightmare.
Yeah, the only thing I'd love you to comment on this. You said the last step is the legacy piece, and to me, I'm definitely closer to death than everybody on this call, just about. So,
well, you visited, so
and I almost died a year ago.
You've seen inside the store.
Yeah, I've seen it. I've seen what death looks like. Not interested. Not interested. I was a little too busy. Death had to go past me. Yeah. So, but the thing is that I, even before and after, I never, and I have this in the accelerator launch that I'm doing, that I never think about the legacy, because legacy kind of talks about your death. I'm always into the living legacy. Like what am I going to do while I'm still here? Yeah. So you're not, and again, I think that it's a difficult thing to do, but I'm always thinking, what can I still do? What can I still do while I'm still here, while I can still enjoy it, while I can still see the fruits of my labor? I mean, while I can still see, for example, right here, I mean, that the accelerators will do amazing things while I'm still alive. I mean, I want to see them, succeed at a high level. And I know you do too. So, your group. So I'm just wondering how you if you separate it, or, because I think that when I woke up from my stroke and I was alive, I mean, I could have been dead and that would have been it. And I said, okay, if I had died, what would have happened? I had a book, but that, what's a book? I mean, is that a legacy? I don't know. But what I had, actually, the thing that was more of a legacy for me was the overdeliverbook.com page, which kind of like honored all my mentors who had also, a lot of them had died and they had been forgotten. So now I'm saying, okay, I'm alive. Half of the mentors on that page were alive. Half of them are dead. So now what do I do? What do I need to do to buck up and keep being alive, doing that living legacy thing while I still honor the ones who are dead because they're going to be forgotten faster. And the ones who are still alive, how do I boost them up? I did this with Kennedy. Kennedy, he was fortunate. He got to read all his obituaries in advance, and then all of a sudden he wasn't dead. So now what is he going to do, right? So so talk about that, because I noticed you had legacy in that last step, and I
great.
just want to know how you feel about it.
Yeah, and to be fair, I haven't thought of maybe there's a better phrasing for that, but to me, here's what it means. When I look at Copy Chief, again, this kind of been a theme for the call today, is that we just move and we have momentum and we try to be as smart as we can in directing the momentum we're creating. And that means a lot of little choices along the way. But if we can measure that we're moving forward and we have an idea of our goal, then that's what we're doing here, right? For me, what Copy Chief became that I didn't expect was a platform for really bright people who had more talent than experience, more knowledge than experience, to rise up and find their voice and discover an ability to do certain parts of direct response marketing, of all kinds of different things, to specialize in a way that sort of catapulted them, allowed them. I mean, I'm really proud of some of the people that I feel like I've had a direct hand in changing. Abby Woodcock, Ross O'Loughlin, Mike Renard, Chris Orzakowski, like these current superstars, people who inspire me. I've worked with, and they all will say, Copy Chief and RFL are the reason. And so when I think about legacy, I think, can I turn Copy Chief into this sort of simple idea of what is now is like, the simple concept was, let's just all get together. It's so great when we can get together in person. We have these great conversations and we have these brainstorms, these spontaneous brainstorms, and then we all go our separate ways and none of that transpires in anything, unless in the rare sense a couple of people connect and actually do something. Very rare. I said, what if we could keep that party going 24/7 on a digital platform and foster these ideas and turn them into trainings? And that's what Copy Chief is. But now when I think about the legacy is like, what if it evolved into like the Udemy of anything in marketing, right? Like where I could help nurture somebody into the seed of their idea, take the process they've created for getting amazing results for their clients. Because as freelancers, man, we learn our clients' dime. We just do it with integrity, but that's the deal, right? And so the people who get damn good at it, and this is what we've been doing in Copy Chief, is like, let's turn that into a training and let's help you grow a business around that. So what I want Copy Chief to be is less of wow, that was cool and that happened that month, and let's have that person go off and see if they want to do something different with it. And in a sense, Brian, become a competitor in a way. I try not to think of it that way, but logistically, I've created a lot of my own competition if we're talking dollar to dollar, right? So what I would love, my new vision, my passion is like, I want Copy Chief to be the hallmark of excellence for copywriting training. Sure, you can get specialty training from people like Dan Ferrari and Justin Goff and David Deutsch. Like that's always going to be there. And I think that's awesome, but they're really specific kinds of direct response. When it comes to learning direct response copywriting and marketing on a deeper level, and even more than that, discovering which part of it speaks to you in a unique way, and you can combine your life's experience. Look at Nicole Piper with branding, 29 years as a global branding executive, retires from that, comes into copywriting, and in her mind, she's got to get at the back of the line because she's a new copywriter. And I go, no, you're a top level branding expert who's now adding an emerging skill of copy into your ability. So let's make that the thing. And now you're at the front of the line, you see? That's the kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, she had already there. It was already there.
It was already there. I just had to show her. It was the same with Carlton told me, is like, how come you never talk about being a stand-up comic? Like, that's fascinating. I'm like, because nobody ever hires stand-up comics to be reliable. They're worried you're going to run off to the next club, you know? And he's like, no, you can let that go. And voila, it was, you know, so if I can, the thing that excites me more than anything is getting to know somebody and helping them discover their unique abilities and realizing that done correctly, you really can turn your passion into your business. And man, if Copy Chief was a store, a housing place for those kinds of trainings that could help you discover, oh, I just thought I liked copywriting and wanted to learn that, but wow, this like list building thing is like super cool. Like this lead magnet thing is like, man, I'm really passionate about that. I want to make that my thing for now, right? So helping people specialize through how other people, we've proven the model that you can specialize in different things. And so, you know, provide them the inspiration, provide them the blueprint, whether you want to do it for your own business or make that another part of your career. To me, when I think of legacy, it's like, how can I create that and give it to other people and make it super easy for them to do that and not have to fumble around and do all the hard parts of starting your own business.
Thanks for listening to the Timeless Marketing Podcast with Brian Kurtz. Visit briankurtz.net and click podcast at the top of the page for a full transcript and show notes. If you're interested in working with Brian personally inside of Titans Accelerator, go to briankurtz.net/help to see how Titans can help you grow and scale your business. That's briankurtz.net/help.